It is 21 Next on your Friday. I'm Joel D. Smith. Let's bring Lily Sexton in right now. She's the person you may have seen during this walk of the 11-year-old Clayton Dietz yesterday as he went into court. He's being charged as an adult in the killing of his father. The circumstances around that is something we'll talk about a little bit. But in particular today, we're getting into this topic of being charged as an adult. A lot of people hear 11-year-old. What is going on here? Well, it's part of state law already, but we had Lily look into today. Could that possibly change? So, Lily, I want to start with a little bit of when you were out there and you watched this kid come in. Some 11-year-olds look older. He really doesn't. He looks 11.
Right. I was shocked, honestly, to see the size of him when he got out of the car. And it's you can see it right here. It's quite an image to see someone that age, that size, like in handcuffs and cuffs around his feet as well, being brought in by these probation officers.
And what did he say to his mom? You overheard him?
Yes, this part was in court. He was tripping over himself when he was trying to exit, and he said to his mom, "It hurts," referencing the shackles on his feet.
And so I think we all feel the emotion of that. And yet then you have to displace yourself and say, okay, this young kid who looks so sad and says his hands or his feet hurt, and that is one thing. And yet he's accused of doing a really awful thing, murdering basically his father while his dad was asleep. And so those things come with big punishments. And in Pennsylvania, the law is if you're 10 or older and you have a major crime, you are automatically charged as an adult. So that's just the way it is. Did you look into other states? How many really are in that same camp as us?
Yeah, there's 29 states where there's this kind of auto charge. If it's a serious crime, regardless of the age, or in some states, it's as long as they're over the age of 10, then they are charged as an adult. Yeah,
when I did this story a couple of years ago, just looking at the differences, I think there are some countries it's 7. I mean, so it's pretty wild. But then again, it's supposed to be a deterrent, and maybe it is, maybe it's not. One more thing about this case. What did he say in court about what happened? There's Kenneth responding. Let's acknowledge this. No child should be charged as an adult. Well, let's get into what happened. When he was asked about, did he understand the result or the punishment, the magnitude of what he had done with the shooting? What did he say?
We didn't go into many details of this at all in court. They were just asking, He was waiving his right to this hearing.
But in the court documents.
Oh, in the court documents, right. The police asked him, what did you think would happen when you shot your father? And according to these documents, he said, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. He wasn't really thinking about the repercussions the night of the event.
He was mad. It was his birthday, coming to his birthday. He got in trouble. His game system was taken away from him. And then he was looking for it, right?
Right. He was looking for his Nintendo Switch. Like you said, it was the night of his birthday. And according to the documents, or according to the interviews that he had with police, he said that instead of finding his Nintendo Switch in the safe, he found a gun. And that's what led to the events that we're talking about now.
Okay. So that's the background. Now let's get into this issue of being charged as an adult. As we said, it's automatic initially. It doesn't mean it stays that way. So it could get kicked down into the juvenile court system. Give us some scenarios where that may happen, why that may happen, and it certainly sounds like what his attorney is going to go for.
Right. If the attorney files something called a decertification hearing, that's when the judge will listen to see if this child should be charged as an adult or go back into the juvenile system. And we're going to talk about this later today, but there's been a number of cases all in recent years here in Pennsylvania where that exact situation happened. In 2025, January 2025, there was accused of shooting and killing his sister, his 12-year-old sister. He said in court that he didn't know that the gun was loaded. And because of that, the judge allowed him to go back into the juvenile system. A similar thing happened in 2023 right here in Dauphin County. A 13-year-old was involved in a deadly shooting. Police say that he was one of 10 people in this shooting. And the bullet that 13-year-old shot was not the one that killed the victim. And that's kind of all we got in terms of information from that case, because after that, it went back into the juvenile system. And when it's in the juvenile system, it's behind closed doors. The docket goes dark. We don't know any more information. Similar things, the last case I'll bring up. Also, I'll talk about this later tonight on air. In 2020, similar thing. A 13-year-old was accused of shooting and killing his 9-year-old sister.
Right.
His 9-year-old brother.
So some of these things... seem to
Again,
have
it was brought back to the juvenile system.
other systems, right? So some of these think that they seem to have extenuating circumstances, other things beyond just the killing. This one may not be, so cut and dry. So Tate says, for everyone who says doesn't deserve jail, what do you propose? We can all agree institutionalized would be best. Those places just don't exist anymore. I guess it's kind of thinking about insane asylums or something like that. So here's the big deal about this. Let's go over punishment differences. So he's found guilty, but as a juvenile, he's 11. What's the longest he would spend in jail according to what you've learned today?
It would be less of jail time and more into this rehabilitation place where at age 21, he would be free again. So the longest sentence he could receive is 10 years. Age 21, he'd be free. But earlier today, they're advocates for putting more children into the juvenile system. And they were saying most people don't even make it till age 21. They constantly check in the court system. And once all parties can agree that the child is rehabilitated, then they are set free.
Right. So all of in the justice system, the whole thing's supposed to be about rehabilitation, but we acknowledge that in some situations when it's a major crime like this, punishment is a bigger role here. So the question is, with someone so young, are we dealing with rehabilitation or are we dealing with punishment? But let me throw out some numbers to you guys, because I did this story a couple of years ago when I talked to Fran Chardo, the DA, Duff County, who was frustrated by this sometimes, knowing that these were automatic. But look at it from maybe the justice perspective. What is justice from the families of the loved ones who were killed? Well, let's say it's a 16 or a 17-year-old, and they are charged as a juvenile, and they murdered somebody. They could be out on the streets within 3 years, which is not a lot of time. And so it may not feel like justice to someone whose family was murdered. Whereas the other case for this kid, let's say, he could be found of, homicide and could be in jail for 40 or 50 years and not out until he's 51 or 61 years old. And so does that feel like justice? So that's where you start getting into the years and the real life examples where it starts getting muddy here. And it's not just like, okay, the kid was young, he didn't know what he was doing. What is justice? Now, 11 is different than 17, but under the law, anything under 18, that's a minor. And so maybe there needs to be something in between. When you talk to your experts from the Juvenile Law Center on this, what were some of their rationale as to why it is unfair to treat someone so young as an adult?
Going back to what you said, maybe that's why it is a case-by-case basis. It's hard to do a one-size-fits-all answer to something like this. So someone that is 17 and commits a serious crime should receive a different type of punishment than someone that's age 11. Like this can possibly go back into the juvenile system. It was age 11. But answering your question, they were telling me that the system of automatically charging children as adults when it's a serious crime, it doesn't take into account things like brain development. Your brain isn't fully developed until your early 20s. There's also, you're more susceptible to peer pressure when you're younger. You don't really think things through, think about the consequences. And that's all things that they think should be taken into account, because a lot of the times when you're in jail, you're being punished for this crime. But sometimes when you're a child, you weren't quite thinking about the actions. Your brain, like I said, was not fully developed. So that was kind of what they were telling me earlier.
Okay. Your shot's breaking up a lot. It's kind of hard to hear you, so we're going to let you go on this. But we got the information out there, which is important. And we will let you know what happens with this next. But the bottom line is, it's this classic discussion of what's fair punishment, what's fair to the victim's families, what's fair to the individual, and what age are you accountable for your actions, and what should those punishments be that balance punishment and rehabilitation. And that's why this is such an interesting topic. And when someone's 11 years old, as you guys have already said in the comments, it's tough to see, but also there has to be some form of punishment, and understanding what that is and agreeing on it isn't so easy. So tell us what you think on this. We'll keep an eye on this the rest of the way for you and let you know what happens. I'm Joel D. Smith. Thanks for watching 21 Next.